Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're going to do a freshwater reel. I have had some requests for some smaller reels, and interestingly enough, this one came into my shop. This is the Shimano AXUL S, AXUL S or 5. It wouldn't be surprising if it's a 5, a small series. It's a freshwater reel, and surprisingly, a lot of folks that have fishing reels ignore the freshwater reel service. They think because it's not getting pounded by salt water or it's not taking on heavy strains like hooking up a salmon or a grouper or something, that for some reason these reels don't need to be serviced. Well, the truth of the matter is they do, and the truth of the matter is that the oils and the greases clog up, they evaporate, they get dirty, and you need to take care of these just as well. Now, the downside oftentimes is that freshwater reels, the lower end of them, are not that expensive, and a lot of folks will use them until they break, and then they'll just simply go out and buy another one. Well, that's the purpose of this channel here, is to show you how to do it yourself, and for a few dollars and grease and a little bit of know-how, you can keep these reels running forever. We recently posted a little video on the anti-reverse for a Mitchell 300 reel, and the comments back are, you know, these things are bulletproof, they last forever. Well, the truth of the matter is that a reel like this will do the same if you take care of them. So what we started doing is we took the handle off and we took the spool off. We'll go back and service the drags in a little bit. We're going to go underneath now, and we're going to take the side plate off. The side plate is held on by three screws, and what I like to do with these is lay them on the table and make sure that these screws are the same length. I know it kind of sounds a little silly, but I've had a lot of occasions, and actually the last video I just did, where I did a tsunami reel, there was a short screw in there. So it just makes sense that before you put these in a place of safekeeping, make sure that all of them are the same, and if they're not the same, note where the shorter or the longer screw came out of. And that's experience talking here. So there's three, they're all the same length. You'll notice a couple of things. Those of you that watch the channel know I like to wear a protective latex glove on my hand when working. Keep the junk in that off. Also use it as a tool for spreading grease from time to time. And also that I maintain a parts tray. Mine is very simply the bottom of a milk jug, and any old tray will do, and I would recommend that that you do just that. Okay, so when we take this off underneath, we've got a classic design here. We have a bushing. We have a bearing up top, I'm thinking. We'll get up there in a moment. But we have a bushing, and then we have a lever arm that forms the crosswind function. I'm just putting these back in the case, and one of the things you'll notice with this bushing is that it does have a indent, so it does sit in two slots in that case to keep the bushing from spinning. You need to know that, because if you put it onto the main gear as you go to reassemble and you don't sync up with the two holes in the case, that the case won't close properly. Okay, so we're going to pull the pin down below to get the arm off. That's also going to release the well, we don't pull the arm off the pin, not the pin off the arm. Okay, I haven't been in this reel. And then we can have access below here to the screw that attaches to the axle. I'm going to try and move that down. I don't have enough clearance there. So you want to just keep your finger on the main gear. Well, actually, you can pull the main gear out. That's what's going on with that. Now we can get to the screw that holds the crosswind block and the axle assembly together, so that we can pull the axle. Pull the axle shaft. We're going to remember how this came out. It came out this way. And that's another point that I like to raise along the way, is take pictures. If you don't remember something as you go to reassemble, you can always go back and look at the pictures. And in this case, the pictures that I'm doing happen to be my videos, so I recommend that you use your cell phone, use a video camera, use a stationary digital camera, do whatever is convenient for you, but take pictures at critical junctions when you're taking the pieces and parts off. That's the cap that goes onto the pinion gear. Now we have the rotor off, and there's your ball bearing. Now I'm just going to check. The bearing is spinning, so I don't need to do anything. If I wanted to replace the bearing, I would pull these two screws. That would free up the bearing and it would enable me to pull out the pinion gear. But in this case, those are fine. So this is a tune-up. We're just going to grab some oil. In this case, it's Real X oil. It's a synthetic fishing reel oil. I do recommend that you do use fishing reels, oils, and greases. Don't use common household products or automotive products. It just doesn't make any sense to do that. They have different viscosities. They have different ways of evaporation points. They have different waterproof properties. Go with the fishing reel oils. They're not that expensive. They're available on Amazon and eBay and through a lot of online sources, fishing stores and Dick's and Bass Pro and things like that. So just go ahead and go order those. You'll be saving yourself a lot of work in the end. Okay. Just going to spin it to make sure I got it spinning again. I'm going to grab my fishing reel grease now. In this case, this is Penn Precision reel grease. It doesn't have to be Penn reels for the grease to work. It just has to be a fishing reel grease. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put some grease. As you can see, this reel's dried out and can use a good lubrication here. So that's exactly what we're doing. I'm checking the teeth while we're doing this, just to make sure that there's no damage to those teeth. We have a little spring that's holding the anti-reverse dog in. It sits over the top of the spring, wraps around the screw, and rests on the back of the case. Sometimes with these reels you'll find that the anti-reverse function has gone bad. It's usually because the spring hasn't been reset properly, or it fell off, or it got grabbed. Sometimes line gets in a case or something and causes that to be a problem. Okay, so with that done, then we just want to go back and get the main gear. Again, check all the teeth, make sure that they're uniform, and also check it this way to make sure that they're not worn kind of in a circular or a wavy pattern. That happens from time to time. I'm just going to go ahead and put some blue grease onto the gear teeth. I'm going to put a little bit onto the shaft in the back here. And we're going to reinstall the... Oh, we can actually leave that off and we can come back and service this first. Just going to grab a paper towel to wipe down the axle shaft. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to put a little bit of grease in there. Now don't put too much grease onto the axle shaft. The reason for that is when you go put the axle shaft inside, it's only going to accumulate on the pinion gear. There's not that much of a tolerance there, and if you go ahead and put too much in there, all you're going to wind up with is overflow on the top with no value. So this is how that crosswind block sat. There's a U-channel that's sitting on the channel that rides here, and then there's a connection point there where we took the screw out of. And now you look into your parts bin and you see about 4 or 5 different screws. If you don't have a good memory, that's where you go back to your pictures and say, oh, that's the one that was the flathead screw. You'll find it and put that back in. Now you want to make sure the bushing is set properly over here, which it is. And now we can go reinstall the main gear. I'm going to just bring that throw down to the bottom here for the crosswind block, and we're going to put a little bit of grease onto the main gear on this side, because that's where that crosswind arm is going to run. So here's our arm, and we predetermined already that you put it over to the top as opposed to moving a pin. And I'll line that hole up with the stud. Then we're going to lay it in. And then we remember that we have the metal washer. It's a thin washer, but the idea here is to keep the arm pinned behind the bearing. And then we had the slots in this. Once you have the slots, you can go close this up. And we know that the 3 screws here are the same, so it doesn't matter which ones came from where. So I'll go ahead and put them in. A lot of folks ask me, why not use a mechanical screwdriver, a battery operated one? I know those of you that watch my channel have heard the answer before, so that's fine. It doesn't hurt repeating. I don't like them. They have an awful lot of torque, and if you don't watch it, you could break a case, particularly a plastic case. Now this case may be graphite, may have a little bit better durability to it, but the plastic cases could snap under that torque. I just did a Tsunami Spear 5000, which had a plastic case. I would certainly not recommend doing that if that's what you have. But if you need it, if you have lost strength in your hands, go ahead and use it, but leave those screws short and just tighten the last turn or two with the by hand. Just don't slam that thing in there because you risk breaking it. Okay, we'll give this the first test, make sure we got all the pieces and parts back the right way. I had no reason to doubt that I didn't. We have the anti-reverse working, and I'm going to flip the bail. We have a good bail here, so I'm just going to oil the junction where the line roller is and just the slots behind it. Now most of the time these are springs and lubrication really doesn't do anything, but every now and then dirt will clog in these channels and lubrication will help. Alright, I said we would just go ahead and take a look at these. Freshwater reel, again, you usually don't put a lot of drag pressure on them, but we'll just make sure they're clean. I'm assuming that these are Teflon drags, but I could be wrong. If they're Teflon drags, we don't do anything with them other than make sure they're clean. I use a pin to pull these out in the right sequence. So we notice we got a couple of wavy drags on the bottom, so let's get those right back in there. Those certainly don't need, they're metal. Next one up is a metal drag with a key washer. So you want to find the slots in the spool for the key washer. And that's the way it will look on the key washer. Now I've reversed this, so we have a fabric washer, it appears. We have a fabric washer. So the fabric washers need to get some grease on them just to keep them flexible. This is kind of a hard washer, but we'll put a little grease on it anyway, it won't hurt it. I'm using Cal's Universal Grease, and I'm using that gloved hand to spread it around there. Alright, we'll put that back in. Then we have the top washer. And then we have the spring which rides in a groove in that spool. So just make sure you get one side seated. The operative word here is spring. These are springs and they do shoot. So keep your fingers on them as you go ahead and do this exercise to make sure that you've got that properly seated. The spring doesn't do anything but hold the drag washers in. So don't be afraid when you take this and you notice, they're all turning and that they should be turning. Okay, we'll reinstall this. We'll take the, oops, just as I noticed. We have one more screw that I forgot to put in. That goes in the block here. And that's a benefit of having the parts tray, is that you can notice these things and you can adjust accordingly. Now, I got lucky here. I didn't have to take the axle shaft off to redo that. Sometimes you don't get lucky. In this case we did. Alright, back to the spool. Back to the drag knob. And back to Steve, whose reel this is, so that you can go take your fishing again. There we go, all set. Anti-reverse off. Anti-reverse on. Drag. Tighten it down a little bit. Drag on. Bail working. We're ready to go. Okay, so that's the Shimano AXUL S, or AXUL. I'm not quite sure what the branding on that is AXUL-S or 5. Looks like an S. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it and subscribe. Tell your fishing friends about it. I'm always looking to grow subscriber base. And with that, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.